welcome in to this week's edition of The Hard Foul. I'm your host, Intern Joe Macheca. With me, as always, it's my co-host, the one, the only, Jack Veltri. Jack, baseball season obviously clearly upon us. Just wrapped up Clemson weekend, and then Carolina just wrapped up a pair of midweek games. You were at both of those. We'll talk about that, and then also preview the weekend series against Longwood. But how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, guys, welcome to Fowl Balls.
Foul balls. I apologize.
Oh man, it's okay. It's
The
okay. It's
hard
one of
foul
those days.
crossover season.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been at baseball nonstop, and in between that and basketball, it's quite hectic. But I'm here for it. I'm ready, and yeah, it's hasn't been an amazing start to the season for South Carolina baseball, but there's still a lot of time to turn around, and I'm looking forward to talking about this Clemson series, and yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, Jack. So we'll start there. I guess we can start with this Clemson series. Friday, the rain out, the game at Founders Park will probably get played in May, most likely.
So
Um,
yeah, there's no official word on it, and not to cut you off, Joe,
no,
but
you're good.
what seems to be the case is that there have already been talks about between the schools and stuff about when the game's going to be played. It's ultimately on South Carolina to kind of decide when because the game's at Founders Park.
Yeah.
And this is all in reference to the rain out that happened last
Hmm.
Friday in game one of the series. So Clemson's coach kind of was saying after one of the games the other day that we're looking at maybe like a mid-April type of deal. But it will definitely be around that April, May sort of range. It just, you got to fit it in with so many other things going on. You can't play on a weekend because South Carolina and Clemson both are busy every weekend. And then you got to do it sometime on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. So it's not necessarily ideal. This isn't what you really envisioned when you had this
Hmm.
series, planned for a while now. But that's, that's just part of the game. That's baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. It is baseball indeed. And then obviously, Clemson taking the series in the next two games, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was Segra Park. It was a really, really, really good game. Ethan Petrie tying it up in the top of the ninth. We were both there. Walk me through what you saw from that game.
Yeah, that game was not necessarily an ideal start. You faced Tristan Smith, the left-handed pitcher for Clemson, that just was dominant. Right, he struck out so many guys through those first few innings there, and luckily, I think you get him out of the game in maybe the sixth inning, and you turn it over to Clemson's bullpen, and Clemson was. I think Clemson was doing a good job of shutting down the South Carolina offense, and then you get to the ninth inning, and Blake Jackson pinch hits and gets that RBI triple. Or it was definitely the triple he hit. And then after that, Ethan Petrie. What more can you say about the man? He continues to mash, and he was doing very good there. So hits the two-run homer to tie the game. And unfortunately, you lose the game in 12 innings, but I think South Carolina, played a really good game and made a last-ditch effort to come back. So it's just unfortunate you came out on the wrong end.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and Blake Jackson coming in, obviously he's changed pitchers, so you need to make a change in the batter's box as well. Coming in for Kennedy Jones. So that was big. Yeah, the triple really ignited things, right? Blake Jackson standing on third, going back to the dugout, trying to get him up, and then you guys know what happened next. Like Ethan Petrie, he was due, right? He was due. It felt like he was, struggling throughout that game. Didn't feel like himself. And then, did what he did with that bomb. So obviously you couldn't come up with the win in the end. And we can talk about the pitching too. Down the stretch, Garrett Gainey going in for that extra innings had a lot of questions. But Ethan Petrie, that home run was monstrous.
Oh yeah, and Garrett Gainey, what a job he did, right? You can look at the box score and say, "Oh, he gave up the walk-off home run and stuff." But it's easy to forget that he was dominant through 3 2/3 of that game, right? He, didn't allow a hit, struck out 6 batters, no walks. I mean, this is a guy that is a starter by trade, was a starter at Winthrop, then went to Liberty, started some games there. He comes to South Carolina. The rotation was a little suspect at the beginning before the season with a lot of guys that who knows what's going to happen, right?
Mhm.
And there wasn't any room for Gainey in that rotation. So what do? You throw him in the back end of the bullpen, and he's honestly I think him and Chris Veach are kind of becoming the duo that you need back there that can go in there and pitch multiple innings, but also lock things down. And yeah, I mean his energy also exuberates and helps this team in so many different ways. It gets them fired up, and honestly, when he was striking those guys out and coming off the mound, just all rah rah and all that sort of stuff, I think that energy fed off into the team. And unfortunately, they couldn't get the go ahead hit after the Petrie homer to ultimately take the lead and maybe possibly win the game. But it happens. It was just one of those days where you had the one really good inning to capitalize and get back in the game. But outside of that, it was really just a struggle. And yeah, I mean, you move on to the next game, and unfortunately, the next game wasn't so pretty either.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was standing like in the photo well by the dugout. I felt good with Garrett Gainey going back out there. You would have thought they would have had somebody ready to go if they had timed up that fastball a little bit, but it is what it is. It's baseball, and you don't also want to, go through your entire bullpen in one game, because that game could have been, marathon long. The way the pitchers were playing, and also defensively too, you got to give credit where credit's due. Clemson was nails defensively. Their shortstop had a Gold Glove performance type night Saturday, and then Sunday also another low scoring game as well. But yeah, tough one on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely tough on Saturday, and we can start jumping into Sunday a little bit, Joe.
Yeah,
Since I think we've covered all our bases with Saturday.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday. I made my way over to Clemson, Doug Kingsmore Stadium for that game, and it was less than 24 hours after the first game, and it was a little unfortunate that South Carolina didn't get to play that first game at Founders Park, because who knows what happens? It might be a series tie, and someone's going for the series win on Sunday, but unfortunately, South Carolina ends up losing this series, and they lose both games in one-run fashion, losing 5-4. And that game on Sunday, you knew they needed to get off to a good start, right?
Hmm.
And offensively they had struggled. Cole Messina was one of the many that struggled. I think he went 0 for 6 on Saturday,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. And he hits a 2-run homer in the first inning to get this team going. And then Dylan Eskew, who last time out before Clemson had pitched really well, and then you go second time through the order, and the struggles start to flare up. He, loses a little bit of his control. The hits start coming, and then it all spirals a little bit. So with last Sunday, he got off to a good start. I think he gave up a solo homer in the first inning, I believe, to Will Taylor for Clemson, and then after that, I think he set down, I want to say, the next 8 to 9 batters, I believe. And he was pitching really well. And then you get into, the fourth, fifth inning, the second time around the order, and then everything just kind of starts to happen. It starts with a walk and then a base hit. And then it's like, oh man, you got runners in scoring position now. And then I believe SQ had a throwing error, and it just all kind of fell apart for him. And luckily it wasn't too bad. He, you know, only gave up 1 run. And after the game, Mark Kingston was saying he'll take that from SQ. Personally, I think 3 2/3 for a guy that's your Saturday starter isn't very ideal. I think if you're pitching on a weekend, you want at least 5 innings almost every time out. It's not always going to
Hmm.
be that way, but when you only give up 1 run and you're at 70, 80 pitches, that's just not good enough.
Yeah.
Uh, and South Carolina has enough arms in the bullpen to kind of last a little longer,
Hmm.
and we'll get into who pitched after SQ to kind of make it work the rest of the
Yeah.
way. But overall, I mean, I haven't been too impressed with SQ lately. I think he's still a guy that would benefit better from being maybe a midweek guy right now. But again,
Yeah.
Mark Kingston has enough trust in him to start. So, it wasn't the best outing. But then you get into the bullpen, and Joe, I'll let you talk here in a second. But
Yeah.
Roman
Yeah.
Roman Kimball comes in, and he gives you a pretty good outing. And the reason he didn't start the game was because Kingston wanted to kind of stick with the same rotation plan that he had from the beginning, which
Hmm.
was Jones on Friday, but he had to move back to Saturday. SQ on Saturday, he had to move back to Sunday, and that leaves Roman Kimball in a spot where he has to come out of the bullpen to make it work to get his innings in. So, Who knows if that was the plan all along to get them both about 3 innings? If so, not a bad plan. I thought maybe just leave SQ out there and let him finish off what he
Hmm.
started, but oh well. And yeah, they faced 13 batters each, and the only mistakes Kimball made were 2 home runs, and outside of that, he pitched really well. So it's all a work in progress right now. And offensively, you came up really short, and it took another ninth inning type of rally to go in and make it a 1-run game again. But you're just the biggest issue that I have from this past weekend, and Joe, I'm sure you can kind of attest to this as
Yeah.
well. You couldn't hit with runners in scoring position to save your
No.
life, man. I think you went 4 for 23 the entire weekend with runners on second and third, and I think 4 for 37 overall with runners on base in any situation. It's not
Hmm.
good enough. It's been a problem that's kind of lingered on the entire season, and you can't be leaving guys on base at the rate South Carolina is. It's not good.
Yeah, especially when you're tied for the top of the country in walks. You're tied with Ole Miss with 116 as of now. But it's one thing like this weekend. It's not really on the pitching staff as much. They did their job, and you know how powerful Clemson is, right? You know how powerful they were coming in, hitting a lot of home runs. Cam Canarella, the power bat in that lineup. But so the pitching staff did their job, right? They did it as good as they could. And then, with the runners left on base thing, you just have to execute, right? This hitting approach of, waiting for something that you can smash and then, giving or taking what they give you, right? That goes so far, right? You have to capitalize eventually. And, nobody's gonna throw you, a meatball down the middle every time, and say like, here, hit this, right? You're gonna have to swing at some questionable pitches, or else you're gonna get rung up, right? You're gonna have an ump who's got a tighter strike zone or a little bit wider one, and then you're going to get rung up. So I think this team is finding that, right. That's just how the fluidity of this hitting, vision and process goes, right. You find your zone and really hone it in, especially going into SEC play. So I'm not worried at all, and it's good that they're drawing walks because. Again, the bats they're going to heat up, right? They're figuring out their hitting approach and just how they want to, attack things. And so as that slims down, as other guys, get into the lineup and they really find their roles, it's going to be good. And they have one more non-con series before you're on the road at Ole Miss. Again, you're tied at the top for walks, so it's going to be interesting. They're a really good team, and we'll preview Ole Miss in a second. But yeah, you can't leave runners on, and I think they learned that from Clemson too, because Clemson's probably the best team. Is the best team. You're playing a non-con, so the litmus test. Obviously, you lost by 1 run, but and you still have to play them at Founders, so the series isn't quite over. You're not going to get swept necessarily.
Yeah, totally. And one more thing with Clemson for a second. Everyone wants to talk about how, South Carolina didn't hit well with runners in scoring position and all this and that. Honestly, Clemson wasn't that impressive either. Like, it was one of those things where
Yeah.
you lose by a run in both games, and Clemson was just better by 1 hit,
Oh
gotten
yeah.
one extra hit, and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, I think Clemson pitched fairly well this weekend, and maybe a little better than South Carolina. But it wasn't like Clemson was completely dominant over South Carolina. It wasn't one of those series where
No.
you knew, like, oh man, Clemson is just so much better than this team, all this and that. Honestly, I know people were kind of complaining about Kingston saying it was the battle of like two top 10 teams. But in real talk, it kind of felt like that. That Saturday game specifically felt like a super regional.
Hmm.
Had that type of feeling with, who's going to get that one extra hit. And, it was Clemson. And honestly, the same thing on Sunday. If Clemson doesn't get that
Yeah.
solo home run in the 8th inning there off Kimball, who knows what happens, right? Ethan Petrie hits a homer in the 9th to make it a 1-run game. We might be talking about another extra inning game. And honestly, at that point, it's just one of those things where it can go either way. And
Yep.
unfortunately, it didn't go South Carolina's way. And another thing that people just kind of, I think, fail to look at is that it's only week 3 of the season, right?
Hmm.
Look, anytime you lose to your arch rival, not fun, not good. It's not a good look. But at the same time, it is only the 3rd week of the season. We're, I think, 13 games into this baseball season now. Baseball's a long sport. they're going to be playing over 50 games in the regular season. That doesn't even include postseason, SEC tournament, regionals, super regionals, all that sort of stuff. A long season to go. You're going to have some bad games. And look, it could be worse. South Carolina could be dropping midweek games like it was 2 years ago right now. And I think they're going to find their groove as the weather heats up. They're going to hit the ball a little longer and stuff. Some of these balls that are going to the warning track are going to fly out. And as long as your pitching staff kind of holds up the way it is right now, I think you're in good shape, right?
Hmm.
Because the question mark heading into the season was not so much about the offense, but what the pitching staff can do. And you get both going at the same time, like I think they probably will. Who knows what can happen, man? It's a long season, and I think this is going to be a long lost memory when SEC play starts kicking up a little bit because that's really where it counts.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about it on this show, right? You technically have five starters that you can go to in this bullpen, right? You have Dylan Eskew, you've got Matthew Becker, you've got Eli Jones, Roman Kimball, Ty Good can start. And then also Eddie Coppers looked great on midweeks. Like if you really needed to a fifth starter and needed to go to Eddie Copper, I think this staff would be pretty confident in doing so. So and then Ty Good as well, another guy that could has starter minutes, and then Garrett Gainey. I mean, there's this bullpen is really deep, and again, I knocked on wood because you hope like last year, injury was the big thing throughout the bullpen. So again, knock on wood that everything goes smoothly. You dealt with some lat issues, and granted, like something is like going to happen. That's just baseball, and that's how it goes. But if you can keep this many guys fresh and pitching the way they are, and Eskew, Jack, to your point that you brought up earlier, he was gonna, battle back. He's the type that, if he's shaky early, he's proven to battle back and get back into games. So, I have full faith in a lot of guys in this staff to get the job done. And, a deep pitching staff is really what matters at the end of the day in college baseball when you get to Omaha, right? It's about who can bring guys out of the bullpen, guys that can just go in, shove, put out fires, starter or not. So that's really how you navigate the postseason in college baseball. So again, knock on wood, you hope that everyone stays healthy and they need to for sure.
Totally, and I like that you brought up Eddie Copper because we haven't talked about midweek games yet. And look, it wasn't pretty offensively again. South Carolina, had a hitters meeting on Tuesday before the Citadel game, and it seemed to work to some extent. But South Carolina also struggled leaving a lot of guys on base and stuff. But with Eddie Copper pitching on Tuesday, he is honestly turning himself into the bona fide go-to midweek starter for this team. Right, he's 3 starts in now. Had I don't want to say it was his best outing of the year because it's still early. But again, he gives you another strong performance. He goes 4 1/3 against Citadel, works into the 5th inning, gives up 1 run on 5 hits, but he also has 6 strikeouts and no walks. And that was a big part of Tuesday is that you're getting a lot of guys in like Drake Quinn, Connor McCreary, guys like that come in and get outs for this team when you need them to. And South Carolina's pitching staff on Tuesday, 13 strikeouts to no walks. That is massive, massive. And again, it speaks again to the depth that this team really has in that area. And again, I think Eddie Copper doing the things that he's doing as a freshman right now, it's going to lend itself well to, if you're in the SEC tournament or a regional
Mhm.
player or whatever, and with the way that those tournaments work is that you're potentially playing back to back to back days, and then with regionals, it's all crapshoot as to pitching staffs and all that sort of stuff. You could be worn out by the end of the weekend. That leaves you in a good spot with Eddie Copper right now. And if you need someone to start, I put my money on him. I trust him to go out there and get some outs and give you 4 to 5 innings. But again, like you said, Joe, you have guys like Matthew Becker right now that are in the bullpen, pitching a little bit on the midweek side of things. And, I think they've got a lot of depth right now, and it's really going to help them down the stretch.
Yeah, most definitely. And, it was a pretty good breeze over the midweeks. And then obviously yesterday got rained out a little early. The Mother Nature must have wanted everyone to get to or to the basketball game, I suppose.
Oh man, the weather was disgusting yesterday. There were maybe about 100, 200 people in the stands for that game, and then they got through 6 innings. So I'll give them that. They got through six
Mhm.
innings. South Carolina was leading 4-1 early, and again was a really, really just not a good day offensively speaking. You got a lot of walks and stuff. You're doing a good job with some situational stuff in the early going, but you leave runners on base still. That's still the main issue with this team. But I think it was probably a good thing to just rain the game out. Don't worry about potentially blowing the game or whatever, because Ty Good was pitching really solid, and then he wouldn't have been able to pitch after that rain delay because there's no way they would have started until like 8 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
Picked it back up, and who knows what happens, man? Injuries can happen, guys can get rocked. I mean, it's just the way the offense was hitting. I wouldn't have been confident in them coming back out there and doing anything.
Yeah.
But you get a weekend where you get to play Longwood now, and you need to sweep this series. There's no excuses. Every non-conference series outside of Clemson should always be a sweep. And I think the thing with this team is you really got to be able to hit, man. You got to hit with runners in scoring position. You got to maybe use the long ball to your advantage again. Obviously, you don't want that to be the end all be all with this team, but I mean, if push comes to shove, you got to swing the bat, and your pitching staff cannot be the one carrying, because I mean, look, a team like Longwood, you're going to be able to beat them without scoring a premium amount of runs. But Ole Miss, Alabama, SEC play starting soon. It's a different animal, and things can get real sour real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, before we really dive into Longwood, do you want to hit some ads real quick?
Yep, let's do it. So, just give me a second to pull it up. There we go. All right. Our first sponsor of the day is from the team at Liberty Tax. Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call on the tax team at Liberty Tax. Fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 weekdays and 9 to 5 Saturdays. There are multiple service options. You can start through Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. You can make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents, and when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. On your screen right now, the phone number to call is 803-462-5576. Again, that is 803-462-5576. And our second sponsor is from the guy above us, Mr. Clint Hammond. If you're in need of help with your mortgage, call on our good friend Clint Hammond at the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call at the number above, 803-771-6933. Again, that is 803-771-6933, or go to clint.hammond.com for all your mortgage needs.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. Nice job handling the ads. But yeah, no, upcoming series against Longwood should take care of business this weekend. You need, obviously, you want to see a resurgence in the offense. Can't leave any runners on base. That's the talk of the town, right, with this offense. So if you want to leave, no doubt, bring them all home.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And some guys I'm looking for in particular to get going or have a good weekend, I'd say number one is Cole Messina. I think he's too good to be somewhat slumping. He's been playing a little better, but again, it's nothing to write home about. I mean, he had the homer on Sunday. He had 2 RBIs the other night against Citadel. But you're looking for a 4-hole hitter, the cleanup hitter in this order, to do a little more damage. And we'll see what happens, but I think he's got to be the guy to really get going this weekend before things pick up. Some other guys, Gavin Cassis is another one, so that could get going here maybe. His batting average has been, really subpar, and I know batting average is not always the best metric to look at when you're talking about offensive baseball, but he's run into some balls, but they haven't gone, up the middle or, through into the gaps or anything. And strikeouts have kind of been piling up a little bit. So those are some of the guys that I'm looking for in particular to get going. And then pitching wise, I think you need more length out of guys like Eli Jones and Dylan Eskew. And then, I'm assuming getting back to a normal pitching staff this weekend. We haven't gotten any word yet on what the staff looks like. We'll probably get some word maybe later today or tomorrow. Who knows? But I definitely expect it to be Eli, Eskew, and then Kimball on Sunday. And then I would definitely imagine Matthew Becker gets his hand in there at some point to pitch out of the bullpen, as well as a guy like Ty Good. So this is your last dress rehearsal, right? It's your last dress rehearsal before the real season starts kicking up with SEC play every weekend. And I mean, look, guys, now it is the time to get it going, and you do not want to be in a position where you're striking out a ton, leaving a million runners on base. Honestly, from covering a little bit of the 2022 season, I know Colin Taylor was on the beat doing that sort of thing back then, but in a way, it kind of does have that feel that season where it's like, I have that fear of like they are in a position where they can easily go back to that mojo of like, okay, they're not going to be able to hit with runners in scoring position, and it's resulting in losses. Like at some point, if they are not able to do the things they need to do with guys on base and score runs, and hopefully the pitching holds up, you're going to be in a spot where you're potentially losing games that you shouldn't, and that's definitely not what you want. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen at all, but it's just that feeling
Yeah.
inside of, they weren't able to do the things that they needed to do that season, and they had a good team in my opinion. It's just you got to be able to take care of business, and you can get right back on track and get some confidence going with a series win and hopefully a sweep this weekend.
Yeah, you can certainly make a statement with a sweep this weekend. Couple run rules is all you need to silence all the hate and all the doubt from this. Leaving guys on base. Why are they leaving guys on base? Why are they leaving guys on base? Your opportunity is right in front of you. Right, you can enter SEC play as a scary opponent that nobody wants to play, or you can enter SEC play as, oh, okay, their pitching staff is all right, and the bats haven't awoken yet. This team is very capable of being a team in the SEC this year. The bats just need alive, and I'm sure they're tired of hearing about it, and I'm sure they're tired of just this weekend they got to come up in the clutch, got to drive guys home, and then obviously, out of the pitching staff, kind of what I need to see, continue to do your job. Right, they haven't been walking a whole lot of guys. It hasn't really been that much of an issue from the pitching staff. A couple, long balls and stuff like that, and I feel like it's just a fluidity thing and calling and just getting back to baseball thing from this pitching staff. Continue to show why you're leading the way in the SEC and stuff like that. So Eli Jones, you brought up Eli Jones. I think he's been good. Obviously you want to see continued success out of your Friday guy and the guy that you're throwing out there to lead off the series. If Eli Jones can dominate on night one on Friday, I have all the faith in the world that they can get it done and continue to have a strong weekend. So I zero doubt in my mind that they'll win the series. Probably going to sweep as well, but yeah, just need to take care of business, and they'll be the talk of the town again, right, Jack? If they have a run rule or two, and the bats are back alive.
Yeah, totally. A lot of people had a lot of things to say after that Clemson series about, South Carolina not being a good team and questioning Mark Kingston and all this and that. And honestly, it's no surprise. I mean, look, you're expected to win at South Carolina and not lose a series and stuff. And these fans and stuff have high expectations after stuff that happened almost 15 years ago now. And I don't blame them, to be honest. I get it. You want excellence out of a team that is one of the better programs in college baseball and stuff, and you've got a chance to really start getting that back to going. The weather's going to start heating up now. It's March and stuff, and this is like I said, this is your last chance to really get a feel for where your lineup's at, what your pitching staff's looking like before you got to do it for real. And SEC play is not going to be some sort of joke. It's going to be a gauntlet. There's going to be times where South Carolina just doesn't have it, and that's going to happen. Every SEC team is going to go through that little stretch at some point where things aren't looking up. We saw it last year, South Carolina, during May, where they had all the injuries and stuff, and they barely squeaked into, they limped through to the finish line before regional started. So now's a good time to really get it going and get some bats alive in the lineup, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing to watch for this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. No, some good stuff. And that will do it here for us. GC Live Foul Balls, our baseball show here on this lovely Thursday afternoon. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We will see you guys next week, and be sure to tune in to the walkthrough this Sunday. But thank you guys, and have a good rest of your